Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into how a silent saboteur, something we all deal with, quietly derails ambitious professionals. That saboteur is ego. We usually think of our drive, our raw talent, and our ambition as our greatest assets, right? But as we're about to see, they're almost always shadowed by something that can completely destroy everything we've worked so hard to build. We're going to kick things off with a pretty stark warning from the brilliant physicist Richard Feynman. He pointed out the ultimate danger of success and ambition, our own boundless capacity for self-delusion. It's a sobering reminder that no matter how smart or how incredibly talented we might be, we are always susceptible to believing our own hype. Part 1. The enemy inside you. Let's really nail down what we mean when we say ego. Just to be clear, we are definitely not talking about the clinical Freudian definition here. The whole ego as a rider trying to control the unconscious horse thing. Nope, we're talking about the casual, everyday ego. It's that petulant child inside of us that demands recognition way past any reasonable point. It's an unhealthy belief in our own importance. It's that annoying little voice telling us we're much better than we really are, which totally distorts our connection to reality. Moving on to part 2, aspire. Talk versus work. Let's look at the real danger of hype. So there's this massive dichotomy between the intoxicating dopamine hit we get from social media updates and the silent, frankly, terrifying struggle of doing the actual work. We all know the feeling, right? Staring at that empty text box that asks, "What's on your mind?" Our ego desperately wants to fill that void with big talk about what we're gonna do. But here's the catch. Talking and doing actually fight for the exact same mental resources. Talk actively depletes the energy we desperately need to go out and conquer our actual goals. To really put this into perspective, look at Upton Sinclair's disastrous 1934 campaign for governor. It perfectly demonstrates how premature talk and visualization can just collapse your actual willpower. Unbelievably, Sinclair actually wrote and published a book, in the past tense, outlining all the brilliant policies he had enacted as governor before the election even took place. By playing out the victory in his vivid imagination, his drive to do the hard work collapsed. And guess what? He lost by 250,000 votes. That brings us to part 3, to be or to do, the ultimate fork in the road. Okay, so let's say we avoid the trap of just talking, and we start making some actual progress. Well, ego doesn't give up. It forces a critical career decision on us. The legendary military strategist and fighter pilot John Boyd articulated this perfectly. He used to quietly pull his promising young protégés aside and tell them they were approaching a fork in the road. He'd say, "You can choose the easy path. Chasing titles, making compromises, and joining the club just to be somebody. Or you can choose the lonely path of true uncredited impact, to actually do something." I want to pause right here and ask you directly. Look at your own life right now. Are you currently chasing a shiny job title just for the approval of others? Or are you actually driven by a larger, tangible purpose? In life, there's a constant roll call, and every single day we have to make this choice. Part 4, the canvas strategy. Clearing the path for others. Now, if you chose the path of actually doing something, history gives us a highly effective, totally ego-crushing framework for our early careers. Back in ancient Rome, there was a role called the entiambulo. This was a person who literally walked ahead of their wealthy patron to clear the way, communicate messages, and basically make the patron's life as easy as possible. While some Roman writers absolutely hated the subservient role, it is actually a flawless metaphor for how young professionals should operate. Instead of feeling demeaned, you use this position to gain absolutely unprecedented access and inside knowledge. By setting your own ego aside and actively clearing paths for successful people, you build a massive bank of favors and learn your industry from the inside out. You're not just kissing up, you're providing the critical support that allows others to be great. You're essentially finding canvases for other people to paint on. I mean, think about it. Absolute icons like Ben Franklin and Bill Belichick didn't let pride stop them from doing the grunt work. Franklin famously submitted brilliant letters to his brother's newspaper under the fake name Silence to Good. He slipped them under the print shop door, letting his brother take all the profit and credit, while Franklin secretly honed his legendary writing skills. And Belichick? He volunteered to do the totally agonizing work of analyzing game film for free, letting the senior coaches take the credit while he deeply mastered the game of football. They happily traded short-term glory for long-term mastery. Part 5, the perils of success. What happens when ego reaches the top? So what happens when you follow this strategy? You finally break through and you achieve your ultimate goal. Well, the battle against ego is far from over. The thin air at the top is incredibly unforgiving. Just look at Howard Hughes. He is the ultimate cautionary tale. He inherited a massive fortune, but instead of building on it logically, his brilliant mind was completely destroyed by the chaotic, unchecked entropy of his own ego and paranoia. He burned millions in the stock market, nearly bankrupted his family's company making Hollywood movies, and spent $20 million of taxpayer money to fly the massive Spruce Goose airplane exactly one single time. Ego fueled this deranged spree of total mismanagement. Harold Janine, the executive who built ITT into a massive conglomerate, made an incredibly astute observation about this. He noted that unbridled egotism totally blinds a leader to reality. An egotist doesn't stumble around an office knocking things off a desk like a drunk person. Instead, they become a menace to their entire organization because they sincerely, deeply believe they can do no wrong. So how do we fight this? Part 6, Always Stay a Student. The case for radical humility. Take a look at how history frames someone like Genghis Khan. We usually just picture a ruthless barbarian, right? But the truth is, he was a relentless student. He actively appropriated the smartest scholars and the very best technologies from every single culture he conquered. He adopted Turkic decimal systems for his military, Chinese siege technology, and he even fused Muslim flamethrowers with European metalwork. His empire succeeded entirely because of pragmatic learning and constant, humble revision of his tactics. This constant drive to learn perfectly mirrors a profound observation by physicist John Wheeler. We have to constantly remind ourselves that every new achievement or insight only exposes us to vast new realms of things we don't yet understand. It's like an island of knowledge surrounded by a sea of ignorance. The second you let ego convince you that you've graduated, your learning grinds to an absolute halt, and your knowledge instantly becomes fragile. To actively combat this, MMA pioneer Frank Shamrock relies on a really brilliant method called the plus-minus-equals system. It ensures he gets constant ego-destroying feedback from every angle. He believes every great fighter needs a plus, someone better to learn from, a minus, someone lesser to teach, and an equal, someone at their level to spar with. This dynamic purges the ego that naturally puffs us up, and it forces a brutally honest assessment of where our skills actually are. I want to leave you with this final thought. Managing your ego isn't just a one-time epiphany. It's not a box you check off and say, okay, I'm humble now. It is a relentless daily practice. Whether you're just starting out and aspiring to greatness, or you are currently sitting at the very peak of your industry, you have to be willing to pick up the broom and sweep the floor. If the greatest minds in history constantly succumb to their own hubris, what daily systems will you put in place to ensure you don't become your own worst enemy?